You freeze up. You freeze up because it's cold outside. And there's nobody around to rub your belly anymore. Or if there is, you don't know how to ask anymore because you're all frozen up. And she looks at you like you should be something more. It's just not enough. And you know it's not enough. Not even enough is enough is enough. Still, she speaks and she speaks. But you're not listening anymore because you're all frozen up. She may be speaking Greek for all you know, or care anymore. At what point does a man know he's done something wrong? It wasn't simply a mistake, it wasn't an accident. There was one moment, possibly one split second, when he could have said, no, this is not the way it was meant to be, but he didn't. He said yes. The darkness must be allowed out into the light, and life must make of it what it will. The term enlightenment seems to imply a state of being without shadows, where one sees only the white light of truth. Of course, one could be as blinded by the light as by darkness. A monster might just as readily leap out of a sunspot as out of a dark alley, and we wouldn't see it till it was on top of us. And what possible truth could someone who sees only a white light communicate to us bodies still wrangling and tangled up in three-dimensional shadows? There are worlds within worlds within worlds, and each world must struggle to have its say in the affairs of the universe. There must be a predator, and there must be a prey. That is a fact of manifest existence. But the distinction will only come at the actual moment one world is consumed by another. We must let the preacher only practice their preaching. As soon as they get involved in anything of any practical consequence other than taking care of their own soul, they must let the shadows enter into their actions. When one becomes tangled up in another's consequences, any one through line to truth becomes impossible. Orpheus was heartbroken. His young wife Eurydice was dead, poisoned by a snake. For days he could neither eat nor drink. It seemed like he might die himself. He couldn't sleep. He'd sit on the edge of his bed, remembering her smile, smiling as she listened to him play his music, and all the words to those songs he'd once written only to his own heart's yearning sounded so clear, so true, and so real they made everything seem forever possible. Without the sadness, there could be no sweetness. The day they were married was the happiest of his life. He sang, she danced, she loved to dance barefoot through the fields. Now Orpheus was heartbroken. His young wife Eurydice was dead, poisoned by a snake. His mind began to play tricks on him. He wandered far beyond his village, through lands he didn't recognize, not even from his dreams, lands where the sun seemed to shine all the time, lands where the rain seemed to rain all the time, lands that were green, lands that were golden, until he came to a land where there were no colors at all, only varying shades of darkness. It seemed he was in a cave, though he could see forever across the great stretch of water, grey as a liquid storm cloud. There was a man in a boat, the shape of a man with holes for eyes, though the holes seemed full of recognition and understanding. Without the sadness, there could never be such sweetness. Orpheus motioned to be allowed into the boat. The holes in the ferryman's eyes stared back into forever. Orpheus began to play and sing wordless sounds that would tempt the dead to return to life again. There was something they missed so much. The young man was heartbroken. His new wife was dead, poisoned by a snake. The ferryman took Orpheus into his boat and rowed away from the shore across the river Styx, back to forever, the land of the dead. And the ghosts of the once living tried to scare him away, but on he went over the tortured plain of Tartarus to the king of the underworld's palace. The three-headed guard dog growled and snapped at his heels. The tormented wails and agonized whimperings of the eternally unfulfilled ringing in his ears. Without the sadness, there could never be such sweetness. Till finally he knelt before Hades himself and his queen Persephone, who were both amazed that a living person should dare to enter their realm. Orpheus played for them, sang his love for Eurydice, and his sadness at her death, as deep as the underworld itself, till all forever wept. And the rulers of the underworld relented to release his young wife back from the dead, on one condition, that Orpheus must not look back at Eurydice till he was once again in the land of the living. The young husband agreed, turned away from Hades and Persephone, and passed back over Tartarus, not knowing if his wife was following him or not. He reached the river Styx, where the ferryman was waiting. He stepped into the boat, hesitated to listen for footsteps behind him. He heard nothing, and the ferryman's eyes were holes that reflected only their own understanding, told him nothing. And Orpheus's heart sank. If she shouldn't be there, had he come all this way for nothing? So he turned and he looked back, and he saw what he yearned to see, fading into forever, even as he recognized his love smiling as she became a ghost, but the vapor of an imagined dream, lost forever in the underworld. The boat moved forward as Orpheus looked back, knowing he had to go on living, with tears in his eyes and a hunger in his heart that only food could feed for the rest of his life. Without the sadness, there could never be such sweetness. Orpheus was heartbroken. His young wife, Eurydice, was dead, poisoned by a snake.